Hello and welcome to TA Made Simple, where transactional analyst Bob Cook talks
Yeah.
about elements of transactional analysis. And today, Bob's going to be sharing with us hungers first brought to our attention in 1961 by Eric Byrne himself in the book Transactional Analysis. So is hunger basically going to the fridge, Bob?
well, sometimes I get some of my clients who, especially not necessarily eating disorders, but they'll say things. At 2 o'clock in the morning, I found myself by the fridge, as if I'm driven, and there's no conscious thought or discrimination.
Oh.
And Eric Byrne will talk about, hungers, a bit like Freud talked about drives. There's a difference, but the way of teaching this. So, we are driven. These are biological imperatives that we're actually driven. Our organism, is driven. So these hungers, he called recognition hunger, which we could call relationship hunger, if you like. Yeah. He talked about stimulus hunger, the idea that we all need to have some sense of stimulus, otherwise we'll collapse, really. And later on, he talked about time structuring. Well, we can talk about that. That's outside being a hunger, really. So the three I want to talk about is structure hunger. I think I'll leave time structure to another day. Structure hunger, relationship hunger, i.e. recognition hunger, and stimulus hunger. So he split these, he talked about these three, and they're very important because Byrne would say we're biological imperatives, we're driven, we need them like oxygen. Human beings are social animals, and therefore they need recognition, they need relationship hunger, and they will search this relationship hunger out. Structure hunger, we need to structure ourselves as human organisms, and we need to be stimulated. So way before the idea of relationship, if you like, relationships being this sort of aspect of cure in psychotherapy, Byrne talked about the importance of recognition hunger, i.e. relationship hunger, as a prerequisite. We have to attend to recognition and relationship hunger. And if we don't, we'll shrivel up. It's the idea of Claude Steiner built on when he was the prodigal son of Eric Byrne. He developed stroke theory.
Yes, it's interesting. So what I'm really hearing is that people need to be acknowledged in the world and to be kind of seen and felt like they're connected with others. And if they don't, there's a yearning, and hunger's a really good name for it, really, isn't it? Because you feel empty and you need to be filled and, satisfied, I guess.
Yeah, and we'll search for recognition even if it's negative.
Yes. Yes.
So for example, if they're not getting positive recognition, will start acting out and screaming and all sorts of things until they get some sort of recognition, even if it's negative, because then they know who they are.
Yeah, and that's why being ignored is probably the worst kind of abuse, because because there's no recognition of any part of you whatsoever.
That's right. And in my days, I'm 68. There was a very, very abusive game in the school yards called Send That Person to Coventry.
Yes.
Where exactly what you are talking about there came true. They would send the boy, or this is the game, and ignore them, because Coventry, I'm not sure why it's Coventry, of all places, Coventry. But anyway, and that would mean ignoring someone as if they weren't there.
Yes, I think it comes from some form of banishment, whether it be the church or parliament. I seem to remember, or was it someone called Lord Coventry? I think it was someone called Lord Coventry who refused to talk to him for some reason. Comments in the comments bar below if I'm right or wrong. Yeah, so the idea that we need recognition, we need, as Claude Steiner talks about, the stroke economy, for us to feel connected to others. And if that isn't there, then that leaves us with a psychological yearning.
Correct. And if you think of neglect,
yes,
or human neglect, then we can see how abusive this actually is, because we don't know who we are really, because our yearning to be connected in the world, our yearning for positive recognition isn't being met. So what do? We turn inside ourselves, cut off part of ourselves, and often end up hurting ourselves and self-harming.
Yeah, or others maybe.
Or others. So recognition is really important in terms of seeking out relationship in this world. So that's a very important one. Stimulus hunger. We all need to be stimulated. So if we don't have stimulus hunger, we will tend to, what Outburn talked about in terms of shriveling up, and what he really meant was that we would turn inwards again. If there's no stimulus, just think about that. We're then moving to passivity. If we're moving to passivity, we're moving to incapacitation and getting depressed, and we go inside ourselves. So we need to have stimulus. Of course, there's healthy stimulus, and there's really quite dangerous stimulus when people move to extreme sports, for example.
Yes.
Yeah, things like that, or addictions might be the search for stimulus. So he talked about stimulus hunger, very, very important to think about. And he talked about structure hunger. We all need to have structure in our lives of some sort, and we will seek out structure in the midst of chaos. So there is a yearning for these hungers, and it's when they're not fulfilled that you get psychological problems.
Yes. Yes. And I suppose that could be all sorts of pathology, from depression right up to neurosis, and maybe someone who's sociopathic. That's
right. At my institute, I do the assessments. People come in from the neurotic well, or the neurotic well, if you like, or the worried well. So they've got quite a strong sense of self, right up to people who are disturbed. So I assess them and send them on to the relevant psychotherapist. And one of the questions I'm always thinking, if I don't say, is things like, how much self-support have you got? Do you live alone? You know, have you got friends? Have you got a base of people you can talk to? And things like that. So I'm thinking of here relationship and recognition hunger. I'm thinking structure hunger. I'm thinking how we live our lives. And people who haven't got much self-support, haven't got many friendships, are pretty live alone maybe, quite self-reliant loners. They are indications that there might be some health issues around, mental health issues around.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that was a really interesting and kind of journey into a key piece of theory by Eric Byrne, hunger.
I like the way you name that, yearning, because that is the sort of feeling we will be having, and then we're driven to search out relationships which could be bad for us, harmful for us, if we pick the wrong type of people. And I think yearning, I really like the word yearning that goes with the driven part of ourselves to search out for these hungers.
Yep. Well, hunger theory, as outlined by Eric Byrne in the book Transactional Analysis in 1961. And before we go, Bob, what's going to be the next piece of theory that we're going to outline and investigate?
Well, gosh, I've got 2 weeks to think about what that will be. I've got so many. I was thinking I might talk about some aspects of modern neurobiology and basic TA.
Yeah.
And how they go.
So not to be missed, I'll hold you to that, Bob. The next time we meet, we'll talk about the wonderful emerging discipline of neuroscience and how it meshes and dovetails with what we already know and how we practice. So as always, Bob, thank you very much.
Thank you, Rory.